The power failed and the ship started sliding toward the rock wall immediately. We were entering the Savannah River entrance channel. The main switchboard had suffered a catastrophic short. We lost all propulsion and steering control immediately, and the strong flood tide was pushing the ship at 9 knots directly toward the submerged rock training wall. The vessel was the MV Cape Fear, a geared container ship of 25,000 deadweight tons. We were fully loaded with a draft of 10 meters. I was the master. On the bridge with me were the Savannah River pilot, the third officer acting as the junior watchkeeper, and an able seaman on the helm. It was mid-morning, roughly 10 hours. The weather was clear, but the wind was blowing from the northeast at 20 knots, hitting us on the starboard quarter. The Savannah River entrance is a dredged channel. It is narrow. On either side, there are sandbars and rock jetties designed to scour the channel. We had just passed the sea buoy and were committed to the cut. The main engine was running at slow ahead to maintain steerage in the following current. The tide was flooding, meaning the water was rushing into the river behind us, adding 2 to 3 knots to our speed over the ground. Everything was normal until that second. There was no warning. There was no vibration or sound of mechanical strain. The lights on the bridge console simply flickered once and died. The hum of the ventilation fan stopped. The heavy vibration of the main engine ceased instantly. The silence on a ship is louder than the noise. When the engine stops, the hull stops vibrating. You feel it in your feet immediately. The rudder angle indicator froze at 10 degrees to starboard. We had been correcting for the wind. Now the rudder was jammed in that position. With the engine stopped, the propeller stopped turning. We had no water flow over the rudder to make it effective, but the drag of the stuck rudder began to pull the bow to the right. To the right lay the north jetty, a wall of jagged rocks partially hidden by the tide. I looked at the pilot. He looked at the console, then at the window. He did not speak for 5 seconds. He stepped out to the wing to check our drift. "We have lost power," I said. It was a statement of fact. "Steering is gone, I see," the helmsman said. He spun the wheel left. It spun freely. There was no resistance. The hydraulic pumps were dead. "Emergency generator should kick in," the third officer said. He was checking his watch. It takes usually 30 to 45 seconds for the emergency generator to start and come online. Those seconds feel like hours. We drifted. The silence on the bridge was absolute. Outside, the wind whistled against the superstructure. If you want to see what happens next, please consider subscribing. It helps this channel reach more sailors. The emergency lights snapped on. They were dim, orange lights that only illuminated the chart table and the exits. The main console remained dark. The radars rebooted, showing the warm-up lines. We were blind electronically for the moment. "Captain, I have no rudder response," the helmsman repeated, still stuck 10 degrees starboard. I picked up the sound-powered telephone. This phone does not require electricity. It connects directly to the engine control room. I cranked the handle. "Chief, report," I said. The chief engineer's voice was clear but tight. "Main bus bar failure, Captain. We have a ground fault on the main switchboard. The breakers all tripped. We are blacked out." "How long to restore?" "I cannot reset the main breakers until we find the fault. We are on emergency power only. I can give you 1 steering pump in maybe 2 minutes if I bypass the main board." "Do it," I said. "We are drifting toward the jetty." I hung up. I turned to the pilot. "Main power is down indefinitely. Emergency steering maybe in 2 minutes. The pilot walked to the radar, which had just come back online. "We don't have 2 minutes, Captain. The current is pushing us on the quarter. With that rudder stuck, we are banking toward the wall. Look." He pointed to the window. The bow was swinging slowly but clearly to the right. The distance to the rock wall was less than 4 cables. We were moving at 9 knots over the ground. The momentum of a loaded ship this size is enormous. Without the engine going astern to stop us, we would carry that way for miles. "We need to slow her down," the pilot said, "and we need to stop the swing." "Midship's rudder is useless," I said. "Pumps are down." "We need the anchor," the pilot said. This was the standard procedure for emergency slowing, but it is dangerous at high speed. If you drop the anchor while moving at 9 knots, the chain can rip the windlass off the deck. It can spark and cause a fire. It can snap the chain, and the recoil can kill anyone on the forecastle. "Bosun is on deck," I said. I grabbed the UHF radio. It was battery-powered. "Bosun, bridge, bosun reading," the voice came back. He was doing maintenance near the number 1 hatch. "Go to forecastle immediately. Stand by port anchor. Prepare to let go. Emergency. Copy forecastle. Port anchor." I saw the figure of the bosun and 2 seamen running forward along the catwalk. They moved fast. They knew that if we grounded on the rocks at this speed, the hull would breach. The channel is deep, but the edges are unforgiving. The swing to starboard increased. The wind on the stern was acting like a sail, twisting the ship. The current pushed the stern to port, which pointed the bow further to starboard. We were crabbing sideways toward the rocks. "Rudder is still dead," the helmsman said. He was trying to use the non-follow-up tiller. Nothing happened. "Chief," I called on the sound-powered phone again. "Status on steering pump?" "Attempting to jumper the starter now," the chief said. "1 minute." "We are swinging," I said. "Give me anything you have." The pilot looked at the OECDIS screen. "Captain, we are 3 cables from the edge. Rate of turn is increasing. If we don't snub her now, we hit." "Bosun bridge," I radioed. "Bosun on station," the radio crackled. "Brake is off. Anchor is ready to fall." "Stand clear of the chain," I ordered. "We are moving fast." "Clear." "Let go port anchor. 1 shackle in the water. Snub it." "Letting go." We heard the hammer knock the pin out. Then came the roar. It is a sound like gunfire. The chain flew out of the hawse-pipe. Rust and dust flew up in a cloud on the bow. The ship shuddered as the heavy metal links hammered against the steel hull. "Hold it," I shouted. The bosun tightened the brake. The band screeched. Smoke rose instantly from the windlass brake lining. The chain pulled tight. The ship groaned. The sheer weight of the vessel moving at 9 knots fought against the steel chain and the brake. "Brake is slipping," the bosun yelled over the radio, "and I cannot hold it." "Let more cable out," I said. "Don't break it." 2 shackles on deck," the bosun reported. The chain was running wild now. The brake could not stop the momentum. The friction was heating the brake band to a cherry red color. We could see the smoke from the bridge wing. The bow jerked violently to port as the anchor momentarily grabbed the bottom mud. The ship shuddered. For a second, the swing toward the rocks stopped, but the strain was too high. "She's dragging," the pilot said. "We aren't stopping." The chain was bouncing, vibrating the whole forward section. Then the brake made a screaming metal sound. "Chain is jumping the gypsy," the bosun shouted. The vibration on the bridge increased. The ship was still doing 7 knots. The anchor was dragging through the riverbed mud, plowing a trench, but it wasn't enough to kill the speed. The current was too strong. "Port anchor is not holding," I said. "We are still swinging right." The pilot pointed. The black rocks of the jetty were visible now with the naked eye, close enough to see the spray breaking over them. We were closing the distance. "Starboard anchor," the pilot said. "We have to drop the other one, dredge them both." "If we drop the starboard anchor, we might cross the chains," I said. "The bulbous bow will cut the lines." "If we don't," the pilot said, "we are on the rocks in 2 minutes." I keyed the radio. "Bosun, stand by starboard anchor." "Captain, port chain is running out. I can't stop it. We are near the bitter end." If the chain hit the bitter end, the final link secured to the ship's structure, at this speed it would tear the bulkhead out. "Clear the forecastle," I yelled. "Get back. Leave the brake." "Running aft," the bosun replied. On the bow, the men scrambled away from the machinery. The port chain was a blur of steel. The ship was still sliding sideways, the black rocks looming off the starboard bow, less than 200 meters away. The bridge was quiet except for the roaring of the chain and the wind. We waited for the impact. The port chain ran for another 10 seconds. We felt the vibration through the deck plate stop for a split second as the slack ran out. Then came the shock. The ship jerked violently. It felt like we had hit a wall. A loud crack echoed across the water. The port chain had parted at the bitter end to release. The sudden release of tension caused the bow to spring back up. The ship rolled heavily to starboard. "Anchor lost," the pilot said. He was calm. He was watching the jetty. "Bosun, report," I said into the radio. "I test turn it in. Port chain is gone, Captain. Parted at the locker. No injuries. We are safe." "Get back to the starboard windlass," I ordered, "and do not wait." The ship was now free of the drag. The current took hold again. The bow began to swing back toward the rocks. Without the anchor dragging, our speed increased slightly. We were drifting beam on to the channel, closing the gap to the training wall. The distance was now 1 cable, that is roughly 200 meters. The silence on the bridge returned, broken only by the wind and the static of the radio. We had no brakes left, and the momentum was carrying us into the hazard. The sound-powered phone rang. It was the chief. "Steering pump number 1 is jumpered," he said. "You have hydraulic pressure, no electronics. You have to use the solenoid buttons on the steering gear itself, or the trick wheel if the solenoid is energized." "Bridge control?" I asked Mike. "Negative. You have no control on the bridge, local control only." This was a major problem. The steering gear room is at the very stern of the ship, 5 decks down and 200 meters aft. I could not steer from the bridge. I needed someone back there physically turning the valves. "Third officer," I said, "go, steering gear room, take a radio, you steer from there." The third officer ran. He did not use the stairs. He slid down the handrails. He had to cover the length of the accommodation block and get down into the steering flat in less than 60 seconds. Every second he was running, the rudder remained useless. "Pilot, we have steering in maybe 1 minute, but it is blind steering from the stern." "Too late," the pilot said. "Look at the water." I looked. The water near the rocks was churning white. The flood tide was pushing us directly onto the stone wall. We were going to hit in less than 90 seconds at the current rate of drift. The hull plating is less than an inch thick. Hitting those rocks would tear the bottom out and likely capsize us in the channel. "Drop the starboard anchor," the pilot said. "Short stay, just enough to drag. We need to pivot the nose." "Bosun," I shouted into the radio. "Starboard anchor, now. Ready? Let go. Dredge it, 1 shackle only. Letting go." Gravity took the starboard anchor. It hit the water with a splash that reached the main deck. The chain rattled out. This time we controlled it. The bosun applied the brake heavily after just 1 shot of chain, 27 meters. The brake lining smoked immediately, but he held it. The anchor grabbed the bottom mud. It did not stop the ship, but it acted like a pivot point. The bow snagged. The current pushed against the hull. Because the bow was held, the stern began to swing. "She's pivoting," the pilot observed, "but the stern is swinging toward the rocks now." This is the danger of dredging an anchor. You stop the bow, but the momentum carries the stern around. The propeller and rudder were now swinging toward the stone wall like a pendulum. We were trading a bow impact for a stern impact. "Radio check, steering gear," I called. "Steering gear, third officer here." The voice came back breathless. "I am at the trick wheel. Ready?" "Hard to port," I ordered. "Give me hard to port now." "Hard to port, aye." I watched the rudder angle indicator on the overhead. It was still dead. I had no way to know if he was actually turning the rudder, except by looking at the water. "Is the rudder moving?" I asked. "Rudder is moving left, passing midships, passing 10 left, passing 20 left, hard over to port." "Hold it there." With the engine stopped, the rudder has very little effect. However, we were still moving through the water at 6 knots. There was some flow. The rudder acted as a brake on the stern, creating resistance on the port side. The stern was swinging closer to the wall. I walked to the starboard bridge wing. I looked down. The black rocks were passing underneath the flare of the stern. I could see the individual barnacles on the stones. The gap was maybe 10 meters. A ship this size displaces water. As we got close to the shallow bank, the cushion effect pushed the water between the hull and the bank, creating a pressure wave that actually helped push us away slightly. "Come on," the pilot said quietly. The combination of the starboard anchor holding the bow and the rudder hard over to port created a drag. The ship began to twist. The stern swing slowed. The hull paralleled the rocks. We slid past the worst outcropping with 15 meters of clearance. "We are clear of the point," the pilot said, "but we are dead in the water now." The ship had lost its forward momentum. The anchor was holding the bow. The current was pushing us, but the anchor chain was tight. We were stationary in the channel, but we were sitting at a 45-degree angle to the flow, blocking half the river. "Steering gear," I called. "Now keep it hard to port." "Hard to port, aye." "Chief," I rang the phone. "We need the engine, even dead slow. We are sitting ducks here." "Air compressors are running on emergency power," the chief said. "I have start air. I can give you 1 kick, maybe 2, but no cooling water pumps yet. The engine will overheat if we run it for more than a few minutes." "I only need 2 minutes," I said. "Give me control." "Transferring control to bridge. Now." The tachometer on the console lit up. It was the only light on the main panel. "Pilot, we have 1 try. Dead slow ahead." "To straighten her out." "Dead slow ahead," the pilot ordered. I pushed the telegraph lever forward. The system hissed. We waited for the start air to turn the heavy pistons. Chuff, chuff, chuff. The ship shook. Then the deep boom of ignition. The engine caught, the propeller turned, the wash from the propeller hit the rudder, which was still hard to port. The stern kicked powerfully to starboard, away from the rocks. The ship began to align with the channel center. Midships, the pilot ordered. Steering gear, midships. I radioed, midships, aye. We crawled forward at 4 knots. The starboard anchor chain was still down, dragging on the bottom, vibrating the hull. Heave up starboard anchor, I ordered the boatswain. We have the engine. Heaving up. We moved away from the jetty back into the safe water of the channel. The blackout was still in effect, but we had the main engine turning and manual steering. We were alive. We were now in the center of the channel, moving at 4 knots, but the situation remained unstable. The ship was running on the emergency generator and a single steering pump. The main engine was operating without cooling water. This could not last long. Steering gear, bridge, I called on the radio. How is the temperature on that hydraulic unit? Pump is hot, Captain, the third officer replied. Ventilation is off down here. It is getting very warm. Understood. Maintain station. Listen for my commands. The pilot was on his radio, coordinating with the Savannah pilot's dispatch. We need tugs immediately. 2 tractor tugs. We are a dead ship in the channel. Tugs Laura and Masterson are en route, the pilot told me. ETA 10 minutes. They were already outbound for another job. 10 minutes is a long time when you have no cooling water. The chief engineer rang the phone. Jacket water temperature is 85 degrees and rising, he said, and we are cooking the cylinder liners. I have to shut down the engine. Give us 5 minutes, I said. We need to clear the narrowest section. You have 3 minutes maximum before automatic shutdown trips to save the block, the chief replied. We had no choice. We used those 3 minutes to build a little forward momentum. The pilot ordered slow ahead to get a burst of speed, then stop engine. Stopping engine, I confirmed. The vibration ceased. We were drifting again, but this time we were in the center of the deep water, aligned with the current. The steering became sluggish as we slowed down. Without the propeller wash, the rudder has to work harder to turn the ship. Steering gear, right 20, I ordered. Right 20, the third officer replied. There was a delay. I could hear the solenoid clicking over the radio. Rudder is at right 20. The bow moved slowly. We were drifting at 3 knots now. The tugs appeared around the bend. They were modern tractor tugs with Z drives. They moved fast, throwing up bow waves. Pilot, we have no power for the mooring. Winches, I said, we cannot heave a line. Understood, the pilot said. He switched to the tug channel. Laura, Masterson, ship is blacked out, no winches. Come alongside, make fast on the bits using your lines. We will handle the eyes manually. Copy that. This is heavy work. A tug's tow line is thick, heavy synthetic rope. Pulling the eye up through the fairlab by hand requires 3 or 4 men. Bosun, I radioed, take your team to the main deck aft. Prepare to receive the tug Laura on the starboard quarter. You have to haul the line by hand. Copy. We are moving aft. Chief Officer, take the forward team. Receive Masterson on the port bow. Manuel handling. The tugs came alongside. They matched our drift speed. The deckhands on the tugs threw the heaving lines, thin cords with a weighted monkey's fist at the end. The crew on deck caught them. They tied the heavy tow line to the heaving line and began to pull. I watched from the bridge wing. The men were heaving in rhythm. 1, 2, pull. The heavy yellow hawser snake up the side of the hull. It took them 4 minutes to get the eye over the bits. Starboard quarter made fast, the bosun reported. His voice was tired. Port bow made fast. The chief officer reported a minute later. Pilot, tugs are secure, I said. Very good, the pilot said. Tugs, take control. Laura, act as rudder. Masterson, control the bow. The tugs revved their engines. The Laura on the stern pulled the tail around. The ship stopped drifting and steadied up. We were now a towed vessel. Steering gear, bridge, I called. That will do. Secure the gear. Come up. Understood, the third officer said. Securing. The tension on the bridge finally dropped. We were not under our own power, but we were under control. The tugs guided us slowly down the remaining 2 miles of the channel to the inner anchorage. We approached the anchorage area. It was a wide turning basin. "We need to drop the starboard anchor again to moor," the pilot said. "We can't use the engines to position." "Bosun, forward," I ordered. "Prepare starboard anchor for letting go." "Ready forward, let go." The chain rattled out. We paid out 5 shackles. The tugs pushed against the hull to kill our momentum. The ship settled. We were safe at anchor. We remained at anchor in the Savannah River for 3 days. The port authorities closed the channel briefly to retrieve our lost port anchor and chain from the riverbed, as it was a hazard to navigation. A salvage barge picked it up the next morning. The company flew in a technical superintendent and 2 master electricians. The damage was extensive. A main bus bar support insulator had cracked due to vibration, causing an arc flash that melted the copper bars in the main switchboard. It was a freak mechanical failure that no maintenance schedule could have predicted. We ran on the emergency generator for 48 hours until a temporary cable bypass was installed. The galley was cold. We ate sandwiches and cold cuts. The toilets did not flush because the sewage pumps were on the main board. We used buckets of seawater. The U.S. Coast Guard boarded the vessel to conduct a casualty investigation. They reviewed the bell book, the course recorder, and the voice data recorder. They interviewed me, the pilot, and the chief engineer. They found no negligence. The crew's reaction was noted as seamanlike and professional. The port anchor chain was reconnected by a shore gang. The windlass brake linings on both sides had to be replaced. They were glazed and burned down to the metal rivets. The ship was eventually towed to a lay berth in the port for permanent repairs. We did not sail under our own power for another week. I sat in my office after the Coast Guard left. I wrote the final entry in the official logbook. It was short. 10:45, total power failure. 10:52, port anchor lost. 10:58, grounding averted. 11:30, tugs made fast. All crew safe. Vessel secured at anchorage. That is how it happens at sea. 1 minute you are drinking coffee, the next you are fighting for the ship's life, and an hour later you are filling out paperwork. If this reminds you of a tight spot you've been in, I'd be interested to hear about it.